We've come to the end of our series looking at our vision and values, thinking about the kind of church that God wants us to be. We want to be a church where everyone is included, from the youngest to the oldest, with everyone being valued equally. And because we want to include all ages, it means we need to intentionally reach and welcome children and young people, because if we don't, we will just grow older by default. And then we have 5 core values, the characteristics which demonstrate the kind of people we are. God has called us to be a loving community, people who grow in faith and honour God, a family where everyone plays their part in serving, and a people who reach out to others around us to share God's love. Of course, God made all of us different. We have different abilities and experience, different opinions and preferences, and different availability to get involved. So last week, when we were thinking about serving, we recognised that we can all serve in different ways. But this list of core values is not a list for us to choose from. These are characteristics which God wants all of us to demonstrate at all times, both together as a church and individually. We can't just pick the one which appeals to us and ignore the others. In fact, they are all closely interlinked. For example, we won't be effective in sharing our faith if we're not also loving. And a key part of growing in faith is getting involved in serving. Worship is so much more than just singing worship songs. It is honouring God in our whole lives. So worshipping includes growing in our relationship with God, loving and respecting other people, serving one another, and living in a way which is a shining example to people who don't yet know God. I love these images which Carolyn was inspired by God to create for us. These paper chain people illustrate the fact that we are a family of individual people who are connected with one another. And in the midst of our family are all of these characteristics of loving, discipling, worshipping, serving, and sharing our faith. So let's finish with 2 questions. Firstly, how do you see yourself fitting into the Viewfield family? Are you an individual who comes along sometimes to Sunday services or occasional other activities, then you go away and live out the rest of your life separate from the church? Or are you an integral part of the church family, serving, praying and caring for one another, and playing your part in the work God has called us to together? Please talk to Ray or another leader, or email the church office if you would like help to become more actively involved. Secondly, what has God been saying to you during this series? Is there a characteristic which you've been ignoring? An area where God wants you to play a bigger part? An attitude God wants you to change? Or a task which God wants you to take on, which will help our church to grow in our core values of worshipping, serving, discipling, loving, and reaching out to the people around us with the good news of God's love?